to his chair.
The class is memory of Jared Orchen. A talis is something that everybody knows. Even Jews who never knew what film is, know what the talis is. It's one of the most object that every Jew knows about. What is the main part of the talis? What's the purpose of the talis? Everybody knows the tzitzis. What is unique about the tzitzis? We say in the third paragraph of the Shema. It was the last piece of the last paragraph of last week's parsha. That the purpose of the tzitzis is to remember the mitzvahs of God. That's the purpose of the tzitzis, the fringes that hang from the talis. How exactly the tzitzis remind us about the mitzvahs of God? Then there is a few explanations. One explanation is that the word tzitzis has a numerical value. The way it's written, we write in full word tzitzis. Every letter in Hebrew is a numerical value. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, and so on. The letter Tzadik is 90. The letter Yud is 100. Tzi, Tzit. Then there is another Tzadik and another Yud. It's another 100. Tzadik and Yud is 100 together. Another Tzadik and another Yud is another 100, 200. The last letter is Taf. Taf is 400. Together, how much we have? 600. And then we have 8 strings. Every tzitzis has 8 strings. It's 8. And there is 5 knots. Together, it's 613. To say that this is remind us in this complicated way about the mitzvah, it's a little a stretch, but that's what's written. The other explanation is that the word tzitzit comes from the word leatzitz in Hebrew, metzitz, picking, looking, like picking between the cracks. That this reminds us to have to look on the tzitzis, reminds us about God. And it's also reminding us that God is picking on us. Still not such a good explanation how the tzitz is supposed to remind us about the mitzvahs. The third explanation is, the most practical explanation in my opinion, what they used to do in olden days if you wanted to remember something. You put a thread around your finger, you tie a knot. You tie so many knots, and somebody asks you, what is the knots are hanging by you? So, remember something, remembering the mitzvahs of God. That's the most practical way. The Bible adds that one of the strings of the tzitzis had to be blue, right? And how is the blue reminds us about God?
The sky.
The blue is the way the Talmud says like this. The blue is the color of the water of the sea. The sea is a reflection of the sky. The blue sky. And the sky reminds us about God. Every time you think about God, you look up. Naturally. Human beings, when they think about God, they look up. Even God is everywhere, but they look up because God is above them. That's how it reminds us about God. That really the blue color, the blue thread in the tzitzis reminds us about God. So far we know why tzitzis, what's the purpose of the tzitzis? To remind us about the mitzvahs of God. The commandment. That if the whole purpose is the tzitzis, why we need a talis? Shouldn't we hang up the tzitzis on our belt? And we'll be done. We should have like a necklace. Tzitzis here hanging, a little tzitzis hanging here. I think if somebody will start a new business, can make a lot of money. Like there's mezuzahs in the car, we'll have tzitzis hanging here like a little necklace, and he will do very well. Why we need a talis? Who needs a talis? Tzitzis is also good. That's the real question. And more than that, the word talis is not written in the Bible. Talis is a rabbinic word. In the Bible it's written a clothing of 4 corners. If you have a piece of clothing that you wear and has 4 corners, you have to put tzitzis to it. Word talis is coming later. Still, the old Jewish people know about the talis. You pray with the talis. It's all about the talis. Who needs a talis? The whole purpose is the tzitzis. Who needs a talis? And you should have a tzitzis hanging up to your bottom. Go on your finger and you remind you about God. You know the big talis or the tzitzis underneath your clothing or the big talis. Who needs it? It's warm, it's too hot in the summer. This leads us, this little paragraph about the mitzvah of tzitzis that we say in the third paragraph of the Shema is in the last week's Parsha, the last piece of the Parsha. That leads us straight to the story of Korach. What's the story of Korach? Korach was Moses' first cousin. And he, first cousin of Moses, was a very important position. You're not a schlepper. And at one day he realized that Moses did not treat him equally the way he deserved. He didn't get the right honor, the right aliyah that he deserves. He felt Moses is the leader, Aaron is the high priest. Then Moses appointed another cousin to be the leader of the family, of chaos. Korach felt that the number 3 he should be. After Moses and Aaron, his father was the next brother in command in the line, that he is next in line. What is this? He started a campaign against Moses. But you know, if you come around and say, oh, Moses did not know me enough, nobody's going to join you. But you have to come up with a very holy object. You have to come up with a good argument. Then he started to say what's written in the Torah, in the text. He came to Moses and said, why you and Aaron make yourself more important than the rest of us? The whole nation are holy. We are all holy. We are all one big happy family. What are you special more? Yeah, we all heard the word of God at Mount Sinai. Why do you think you're more special than us? The Medrash adds what was going on there. And why the Parsha of Tzitzis is before that? Because Korach came with an argument. Korach took 250 leaders, rabbis. He put them up with a talis that's completely blue, without tzitzis. He came to Moses and says, these talises, the blue talises, talisim, do they need tzitzis? They had 4 corners. Moses said, sure they need tzitzis. What do you mean? Every garment that has 4 corners is obligated with tzitzis. He says it doesn't make sense. If one blue thread makes the whole garment kosher, if the whole thing is blue, wouldn't it make it kosher? Moses told them, that's what God says. It says to have 4 corners, 4 tzitzis. A garment who has 4 corners needs tzitzis. Blue, green, yellow, doesn't make a difference. Logically, you might be right, but that's what God says. Then the Medrash continues. Korach told them, if you have a Torah in the room, do we need a mezuzah? He said, sure, you need a mezuzah. Every dome needs a mezuzah. Korach said, it doesn't make sense. What is in the mezuzah? 2 paragraphs of the Shema. The Torah has 2 paragraphs of the Shema, plus. That if you have a Torah in the room, you need a mezuzah? It doesn't make sense. Moses said, that's what God said. What was Korach's problem? Korach wanted to make sense out of the Torah. Everything should make sense. Logically. We took the Torah on a logical level. If the reason is to remember about God, I have a better way to remember about God. I have a cell phone to remind me about God. Today's world, don't need tzitzis. We'll have better ways, reminders. We'll put up the cell phone every 15 minutes. We'll give us a ring. We'll remember about God. The whole purpose of the mezuzah is to remember about God with 1 paragraph. You have the whole Torah. What Moses argued? Moses told them, God is above logic. It's bigger than you. And that's what the talis is all about. The talis will take over our head. The talis reminds us that the tzitzis have to hang out of the talis. The mitzvahs are coming from a place that's above logic. Then you right, you have tzitzis, but that mitzvahs, but not mitzvahs that, oh, this mitzvah makes sense, this one doesn't, goodbye. The mitzvahs are coming from a place, from God, from an authority that you cannot argue. That doesn't have to make sense. And that was the problem from Korach. And that's why the Talis is so important. It's not enough to have tzitzis hanging out from anywhere from our belt. The Talis is not less important than the tzitzis. What's the approach to Judaism? When you come to God, you dress yourself up, you wrap yourself over your head, you wrap your Talis, right? Because you say, you recognize that there is something above you, bigger than you, larger than you. If you understand what God says, nice and fine, beautiful. If I don't understand, it's okay too. Many mitzvahs, actually the mitzvahs the Jews don't understand, they do more carefully than mitzvahs that they understand. That was the Talis all about, to remind us constantly that there is something bigger than us. And that's why it's interesting to note, even that tzitzis is an optional mitzvah. If you have a garment of 4 corners, you put on tzitzis to it. Let's say I do not have a garment of 4 corners, I'm not obligated to have tzitzis. We are choosing to fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzis. We don't have to. Tefillin, for example, is an obligation. Still, tefillin we put on 6 days a week. The talis, 7 days a week. Tefillin we don't put on not on Shabbat and not on holidays. Talis is universal. Every day of the year we put on a talis. Because you have to remember that above us, before you turn to God, is to put over your head, and that's the purpose of the kippah too, to remember that God is above you. The most important thing, if you think you can, if you base everything on logic, will come a moment in life it's not going to make sense. The approach to Judaism has to be Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will later understand. First of all, we do. Make sense or doesn't make sense. Later we try to understand.